When it comes to snapshot control of the desk, we don't actually use the console as the master controller. We have an external control system, Figure 53's QLab system. And the QLab system fires MIDI into the desk and records the snapshots. This enables us to put sound effects, click tracks, external reverb control, MIDI show control, MIDI timecode, all in one centralized cue list, controlled by one set of buttons, and to have the desk respond to QLab in a succinct and synchronized manner. There's an awful lot of programming of VCAs and vocal microphones. For that reason, we actually split our snapshots into two types, band and vocals. So what we'll do at the top of the song is we will have a snapshot that includes all of the band channels scoped for fader and mute, and then a separate cue that has all of the vocal mics scoped for band and mute. We'll then have QLab recall those two scenes rapidly together, a tenth of a second difference. There's also ways of doing that within the snapshot menu using child and parent cues, or indeed having events that trigger other cues when certain cues are loaded. From our point of view, it's much more succinct to have QLab do it all in one centralized place. Why do we do that? Well, the logic is that by recalling a band mix at the top of a song, we have all of the band faders in the right place for the top of that song. We then recall a vocal cue, and that puts all of the right vocal mics up, unmuted, and in the right VCAs. But then as we step through that song with various different people singing principal lines, we can add more and more vocal cues without messing up the band mix. So the band mix has been loaded, it's been set. You can reach over and go, oh, I just actually think I have a little bit more lead guitar. You can reach over, push that fader, load a new vocal cue without having to store or stamp over the band mix that you've got up and running. What that means is that you've got right until the end of the song to scroll back up to the band cue, hit the band cue and store it without having to worry about, oh, I've got to store this before I go into my next vocal cue. It also means that you can have 7 or 8 vocal cues within a song, but only have one band cue at the top, or if you've got a dance break or a big rock section towards the end of a song, you can put in additional band cues to load a different mix for that particular part of the song. So if as an example we look at I Would Do Anything for Love, you'll see that here we have a vocal cue at the beginning with just vocal mics assigned in it. If I pop to the band layer, you'll see there's no band mics assigned there at all. The indented follow-on cue, which is B, I Would Do Anything for Love, B being band, you'll see that all the band channels are assigned, but no vocal mics. You can also see here in the scope what we're actually recalling. So we're recalling fader and mutes, dynamics, pan and bussing, VCA assignments, names for the channels, some of the auxiliaries, and some plugins. So, for example, in this band cue for Anything for Love, we are recalling an EQ3 on guitar 1. I seem to remember that the guitar patch that he uses in this is really low, mid, heavy, so we just drop in a little low, mid pull on guitar 1 just to stop it being too muddy. So a lot of these snapshots get created during rehearsals and technical period. A lot of the programming of VCAs actually gets done before we even get in the theatre. So the VCA assignments, mutes, and vocal programming often will be done offline on a laptop in the rehearsal room before we've even stepped foot in the theatre. That gets updated on the fly as we go through technical rehearsals, dress rehearsals, that kind of stuff. And even sometimes live in the middle of a show when we realise something's changed that we didn't quite appreciate. With regard to the band mix, what I'll try to do is create a home mix. So I'll have all the faders set at 0 at Unity and try to use the gain pots to dial in a home mix so that if I just shove all the faders up at 0, everything will kind of sound okay. That's kind of the balance. That is not necessarily in keeping with the logic of, everything running through the desk at optimum gain structure, but sometimes practicalities come ahead of perfect science. And I tend to find that just having a flat home mix that you can go to as your starting point, and then go through the show on a song by song, part of song by part of song basis, tweaking the mix on the faders and storing those snapshots as you go along. I just find that's a good workflow that allows me to achieve what I want. One of the common problems in musical theatre is how to deal with understudies, how to deal with different people playing the same character. The S6L actually works very well with this because the VCA programming and auxiliary programming and all of that kind of stuff sits separately from the channel library. So what we can actually do is if we pick a cast member that we've got an understudy going on before. We can create channel libraries, and those channel libraries include the characters and the people actually playing them. So we can load up a different channel library from a different person into the channel that is the character that they are playing today. That means we can record EQ and dynamic settings, differences in their voices, differences in their performance styles, and overlay it over the previous character, the previous person that was playing that character in the show. That means we don't actually need to make any changes to any of the snapshots or do any reprogramming, because the Avid channel library just allows us to store all that information and recall it as and when we need it. All of the snapshots are triggered via MIDI from QLab, so we just send bank change information followed by program change information to record whatever snapshot we need. This show, actually, from a musical theatre point of view, is not particularly complicated from a snapshot point of view. We have 286 desk snapshots. That sounds like a lot, but 42nd Street up the road is pushing on to 600 snapshots. We are actually beginning to make use of the new momentary snapshot facility that's just been added in 5.4. At the moment, we're not doing anything particularly clever with it. We have a queue that resets all of the mix VCAs, so we can just recall the same cue again and again and again at the beginning of each song, and it just flattens out all the mix VCAs, make sure they're all back at their 0 position. When I say mix VCAs, I mean the specific high resolution parts of the band, so it just makes sure that they're all back at 0 at the beginning of each song, in case sound operator's been pushing and pulling them around and hasn't quite got the faders back to 0 at the end of it.